right, Rawson, good morning. Today we are going to be talking about what is by far some of the most popular concerts we do every year, our Russian winter festivals. We have two of them coming up in January. Russian Winter Festival 1 is January 10 and 11, and Russian Winter Festival 2 is January 24 and 25, both at the Ohio Theater. Let's start by talking about the program for Russian Winter Festival 1.
Russian Winter Festival is one of those brands that we have developed in recent seasons that, first of all, seem to fit in the right time of the year, explores repertoire which is some of the most exciting in the symphonic literature out there, and also reflects my personal interest in Russian music, related, of course, to the fact that I come from that part of the world and have very strong ties to not only the composers that compose the piece, to their language, to the aesthetics behind it, but also something that I grew up with and something that I was exposed to from a very early age. Our first concert, which will feature only two pieces, is dedicated to some of the most important composers of the late Romantic, early 20th century styles. We will have a piece by Rachmaninoff, his first piano concerto that he composed at age 17, at a very interesting moment of his life when he decided to quit his studies of piano at the conservatory and to dedicate his life to composing. We know that this was not entirely true later on because just like many other great composers of the past, such as Mozart and Beethoven, he was by far the most influential promoter of his piano music, and certainly later on in life he became the person that that was known not only in Russia at the time, but pretty much all over the world. And he immigrated here to the United States at a very relatively late age and had struggles of learning English and supporting his family, but nevertheless he was known here to the audiences not only as one of the greatest pianists, but also as one of the greatest composers representing the Russian school. We have Natasha Poremsky, one of our favorite soloists in recent years, and she is going to be interpreting the concerto, a relatively rare piece on the repertoire because it was largely overshadowed by much more popular Concerto number 2 and number 3. But the truth about number 1 is that there are two different versions existing. One is the original one, which he composed in 1893, and then he revised the concerto later on in his life in 1917, which was essentially after he completed the second and the third piano concerto. Right. So it was a piece that carries the elements of this lifespan of almost 25 years of its existence. And we're going to be doing the revised version of that. On the same concert, another rarity on concert stages, this is Tchaikovsky's Manfred Symphony, which is a piece based on the Byron's novel titled Manfred. And this work fits in the chronology of Tchaikovsky between his two most popular works, Symphony number 4 and Symphony number 5, and it is a long work that I think contains in itself pretty much everything that we love about Tchaikovsky's music. You have memorable tunes, you have enormous dramatic tension and development. You have program music that you could very clearly follow throughout the performance, and you have some of the most brilliant use of the orchestra up to that time in terms of orchestration, in terms of brilliance, in terms of virtuosity, and all these elements that we associate very much with Russian music. So if you have never heard this piece, I envy you. I wish I could borrow your ears and hear it for the first time, because I think, in the words of Tchaikovsky, this is the piece that he valued the most among his symphonic works. And if you come, you'll hear exactly why. So, two great pieces on that first concert. One amazing soloist that has become a fixture here in Columbus, very, very popular, Natasha Poremsky, and an exploration of relatively unknown music that I feel you should know.
Do you have any personal connection to the music on this concert? Is there something that draws you to creating this program?
Other than the fact that I do a lot of the music of Tchaikovsky and Rachmaninoff, and the fact that in recent years I have interpreted particularly Manfred several times. It feels like a piece that I could very easily associate my artistic ideas with, and a piece that sort of reflects my emotional world, I think, pretty closely, and a piece that I feel very comfortable narrating on stage, because it's very close to a novel. And the way it unfolds, there's a lot of drama, there's a lot of unexpected turns, right. There's a lot of recurring interesting ideas. So if you like Berlioz' Symphonie Fantastique, you're certainly going to like very much Manfred, because the pieces have sort of a similar birthplace and way of treating the material, always bringing you back to a theme that you recognize, but you also recognize that, just like in life, nothing happens exactly the same way twice, that things would have experienced some sort of a metamorphosis and change, and this is something very interesting to follow from a purely rational perspective on this concert.
Beautiful. And of course, as you said, Natasha Poremsky is going to be on this concert, and she has really become a favorite of the Columbus audience. Last time she was here, she completely sold out one of our houses, all 2,800 seats taken, and it was really an electric evening, so we expect the same coming up here.
Certainly, yes. We expect that from every concert, not only when she is here.
Yes, that's true.
Because I do think that we put a lot of effort in curating unique programs, something that you could not really hear anywhere else, something that you could not really pull from your record collection at home. And the experience at the Ohio Theater and the relationship between the works we program always brings something in addition to just being exposed to those works.
Well, absolutely. This is just the whole evening is an experience from the minute you walk in and sit down and let yourself go. Put your phone down, put the TV down, and just live in the moment of those concerts. It's something else. Great. And then we move on to Russian Winter Festival 2, which we go from a concert of kind of very big, mammoth, epic works to a concert of more, I don't want to say lighter works, because they're not lighter at all, but shorter and more spunky works. Would you tell us a little bit about what's on Russian Winter Festival 2?
Yes, absolutely. Russian Winter Festival 2 is going to feature those works that you absolutely love, but for some reason you never really hear on the concert stage. And they're shorter. Most of them are they're not pieces that you would hear regularly on the concert stage, at least not in the United States. That does not mean that they are not popular somewhere else, because they are. Yeah. But here I would like to introduce perhaps some works that people do not know. And this is certainly, I think, going to be the case with the bigger piece on the program, which is the suite by Rimsky-Korsakov from his opera, The Golden Cockerel. And this is a work which, it's his last opera, and it's sort of the crowning achievement of him as one of the greatest orchestrator, one of the greatest chefs that knows how to cook with the colors of the
word.
orchestra. They use the ingredients, and you hear also a lot of resonance from his other very popular work, which often graces our season, which is his Scheherazade, a wonderful symphonic fantasy inspired by the 1001 Nights, the collection of Arabian fairy tales. You hear a little bit of that in this because the subject of that is taken by one of the greatest poets in Russia, Pushkin, and as it was very fashionable at the time and quite important, I would say, this was some sort of a satire about incompetence of the government, about it is also about political corruption, and it's about aristocratic stupidity. So a lot of interesting ideas that one could probably transfer a little bit closer to our time, if not even in our time. Those are things that do exist, apparently.
Well, that's the amazing thing about a lot of the operas that we experience is that you can take them and place them in different times, and they work very well.
Exactly. But this is a satire, and that particular style is, I think, it's going to come very interestingly through the concert and through the textures of a truly virtuosic piece for the orchestra.
Right.
And there is another connection on this program, which is Prokofiev's Lieutenant Kije, which also was born as part of something else, not exactly as truly symphonic piece. It was essentially the soundtrack to a movie that was created in 1934, and at that time we must admit that as the movies started featuring sound, and they transitioned from silent movies to movies that had recorded voices of the actors, and in addition there was another new opportunity there to create a soundtrack that accompanies the moment. Prokofiev was really one of the first important composers that left a true mark on the art of writing soundtracks.
Of course.
And of course we know his score to the famous movie Alexander Nevsky. A little bit less popular is Ivan the Grozny, and this particular work is again a political satire, because the whole story of the movie goes that because of a bureaucrat making a mistake on listing the soldiers in an army, apparently invented a person that does not really exist. Yeah. And the entire parody of that movie is what can we do with a person that does not really exist? And you see this person being at a wedding, but he is the groom, but he never really appears there. So you have all these fake things that are happening throughout the movie that are not really true stories. They're sort of like, using our popular term now, they're sort of like fake stories right now. News, so it's another one of those interesting things that happens over the course of the year, and the history seems to be repeating itself. And that much saying that the music could not really portray anything that is happening around us. But the score itself is, I think that almost everyone in the audience, even if they don't know it by name, once you hear some of the most famous moments of it, they will recognize it right away.
Of course.
Yes, it's a beautiful piece, very, very direct, and very interesting in the approach in which he treats the orchestra. A lot of interesting colors there, including a relatively rare instrument on the stage, which is the saxophone. Great solo for the trumpet, and all these wonderful things that everybody loves to hear. Because it's not only a piece for an orchestra, but it's also a piece that features our great principal players.
Yeah.
And the rest of the pieces on the program are somewhat more popular. We have another excerpt from an exotic opera by Borodin, Kniaz Igor, and we're going to be playing his famous,
Very famous.
Polovtsian dances,
Yeah.
which is a work that, fascinatingly enough, has been used, particularly that first theme at the opening, has been used as a theme for so many songs out there. And that work is again a product of the obsession of Russian composers with the countries of the East. They were at the time an expanding empire, and they were looking very much towards the countries in Central Asia, countries on the Balkan Peninsula, of course, countries on the Far East, and that obsession with something that is happening in a different, warm, interesting land that is different from the cold Russia.
Of course.
Was something that was very, very popular and consumed very easily by the audiences at the time.
Right.
And the last work on that particular program does not need any introduction. It's Tchaikovsky's very popular, probably the most popular piece that he wrote. It's the Overture 1812.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it, yes. And this piece is rarely performed in its entirety. Normally people perform it as part of summer concerts or as a background to fireworks. But when heard without any cuts, and when heard in its context, you understand why this piece sort of has become this evergreen emblem, if I should use that word for the work of Tchaikovsky. And of course, the piece is based on an important event that happened on Russian soil in 1812. This is when the Napoleon invaded Russia and literally was stopped just a few miles outside of Moscow without being able to conquer the capital at the same time, at that time of Russia. And the way he juxtaposes the themes, you have the French theme on one side, the French idiom, and the Russian theme on the other side. And the description of how these two different worlds engage in a fight, in a war, is something very, very exciting and descriptive. And how the last moment of the work is this incredible apotheosis, not only of the victory, but also of the imperial grandeur of Russia at the time, and sort of the establishment not only of the rule of the Tsar, but also the establishment of the Orthodox Christian religion as a very, very big factor. So all these bells at the end, and all these festivities are very important things, very important elements that composers use to create that incredible sense of patriotic feeling, which this piece is dedicated to.
You kind of hinted at this earlier, but this is a concert that really focuses on the musicians of the orchestra, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we are an orchestra, and as I said, not every single concert needs to have a featured soloist. We have plenty of those inside the orchestra, and the repertoire is chosen with that in mind.
Absolutely.
Nobody is going to miss having a featured soloist on that. Just because the music is, the whole menu for that concert is so exciting.
It's a display of orchestral virtuosity.
Yeah, not only that, it's more than just the virtuosity in the orchestra. It's the ability of our musicians to really play so many different roles, and their versatility and their like good actors, they could be just about anybody on stage, and they will be completely believable and convincing.
These are our Russian Winter Festivals, and we do always have fun activities that are associated with them. So one of them is on the Wednesday following Russian Winter Festival 2, we have a quartet playing Tchaikovsky's first string quartet at the Columbus Museum of Art as part of our Mozart to Matisse series. Prior to the concerts, I think you're going to be speaking before Russian Winter Festival 1, kind of giving your own personal insights as part of the pre-concert lecture, and Christopher Purdy is going to speak before Russian Winter Festival 2, and then after the concerts, we do a vodka tasting of OYO vodkas, and this has become a really fun and popular way to kind of mingle with musicians, mingle with audience members, mingle with Rawson as well, and kind of celebrate these great concerts. And just a reminder, these concerts are on January 10 and 11 for Russian Winter Festival 1 and January 24th and 25th for Russian Winter Festival 2. And you can get tickets online at columbussymphony.com or through the Kappa Ticket Center. Thank you so much, Rawson.